The following podcast is a Next Level production.
I'd like to move for dismissal of all charges against my client.
On what ground?
Runa is the daughter of an elfin diplomat on Asgard and now in New Asgard.
Did you know about this?
As such, she has diplomatic immunity.
She may have diplomatic immunity in New Asgard, but we are not in New Asgard.
Hey, panelers, welcome back to the show. I'm Mark.
And I'm Steve.
And this is going to be a spoiler-full podcast about She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, Season 1, Episode 3. The People versus Emil Blonsky. So, Steve, why don't you give us this little synopsis that we got about?
Another short and sweet one. She-Hulk represents Emil Blonsky, a.k.a. the Abomination, but his parole hearing doesn't go as planned.
Yeah,
it's an interesting. I'm going to be interested when we get done to listen to Podcastica's She-Hulk cast and see what Penny thought of this. I don't know if this is normally how a parole hearing goes, but
exactly, yeah, she has more of the legalese that goes on within, I would say, within the courtroom as well as parole hearings. I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So, we highly recommend. On House Podcastica, they do She-Hulk cast with Penny and our friend Greg. Yeah. So if you want to get more of the legalese and their fun stuff that they do too, because they do a weekly poll, which is pretty funny and cool. But check them out when you can. We just like to talk about the episode, stuff that's pertaining from the comic to the show itself, which is fun at times. And, with that, we're just going to move right along into our initial thoughts. So, Steve, what were your initial thoughts?
I'm loving each episode. I think the pilot was great. The second episode, I enjoyed the second episode. It was really good. But this one, wow, I really, really enjoyed. It was really funny. Had some great comedic moments in it. It moved the story and it opened us up to, at the end there, opening us up to what looks like potentially the larger story that we're going to be seeing. So I'm excited to moving forward with this one.
Yeah, I same here, but it opens up a lot of doors to more MCU stuff that I noticed, and we'll talk about that when we get into it. But overall, I thought it was a good episode. It made me laugh. A lot of instances that happen within the courtroom, especially with the elfish person from New Asgard, as well as Emil and his him able to transform and stuff like that. There are a lot of key things that happen within this that I just I laughed, had a good time with, and I'm glad what they're doing. This is more of a comedic, more adult comedic aspect. Within Disney Plus too, because we've already mentioned it before when we already recorded for the past 2 episodes that, this is more of an adult oriented show more than any of the other, Disney Plus, Marvel properties that are out there. And I really do enjoy it.
Yeah, and I absolutely loved the fourth wall breaks that we get in this one. I've got them listed in my highlights because they were all really, really good.
They are really good, and that I just love the fact that they're actually doing that. And let's start forth with our highlights, our top highlights. So you want to start us off?
Sure. I'll start out with Wong. I know we're going to talk about Wong. We're probably going to talk about Wong throughout the episode because he comes into play several times. But I love, and I actually didn't realize I started to watch a YouTube video. I think it was New Rockstars on this episode before I realized, wait, I can't watch this yet. I've got to wait to podcast on because I don't want to be tainted. So I did get a little bit of information from a YouTube video, but I did also pause it on this scene to make sure they were correct. And his LinkedIn page does show that he was a Target sales representative in Karmatage. How do you say that place? Karmatage. It's Karma Chameleon, whatever.
It's KAMAR-TAG.
Okay.
Karmatage.
Okay. I just love the scene when he comes into the office and he's like, we need to talk. And she gets a chance to get out of that meeting. That we'll probably talk about Dennis and his issues later. But she gets out of that meeting. And so she talks to Wong and she's like, no, I'm not the one who's going to be, prosecuting him. I'm trying to defend him to get him out of jail. You just did something that's going to keep him in jail. Mm-hmm. And he's like, he does the whole, shall we put him in the mirror dimension? She's like, or he's like, I'm not going to stop time. I'm not going to turn back time so that we can reverse it or something like that. She's like, no, I don't want you to do that. That would be completely unethical.
Yeah.
I just love, and he's like, I'm not doing that again because that's a whole bunch of trouble,
But his whole thing was saying that it was him for his training to be the Sorcerer Supreme. That was his whole training.
That first meeting just shows us that he really has a comedic, which we've seen a little bit of the comedic side of him. Yes. But man, Benedict Wong it's Benedict Wong playing Wong. I love how in the hearing, she's like Mr. Wong and he's like, no, it's just Wong. The Sorcerer Supreme, the master of the mystic arts, the defender of the whatever, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy is he does the whole nose. She's like, okay, we'll do wizardcraft as plan B. And then he touches his nose. She's like, no wizardcraft. The whole thing with him. And then when he's in the hearing and they tell him that he committed a crime and he's like, I shall depart. And then he just leaves. I'm like,
meanwhile, he can actually be prosecuted too.
Yeah.
But they can't find him.
Yeah, exactly. So I just really thought the whole thing was great. He gave his testimony, and we'll talk some more about the hearing. But just Wong in general was just a treasure to watch and to see him act up. And I love that one of the fourth wall breaks that I'll talk about later. But in the car when she says, "I know you're all excited to meet Wong," So I thought it was just great. Yeah. So Wong is my first highlight.
Yeah. Wong is very incredible within this particular episode. And I'm so glad we got Benedict Wong coming back to reprise his character as Wong. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it's like, he kind of just leaves abruptly as soon as they say, well, you cater to the, breaking out a prisoner, and I was like, I have to leave. And he gets his sling ring and he leaves.
Yep.
But the fact that we get a lot of callbacks to Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness too. Mm-hmm. So it kind of links everything from the MCU into the Disney Plus stories that we get.
Oh yeah, they're definitely hitting us over the head with the making sure there's no question that this show connects to the MCU. Like they're making sure we know 100%. Like every episode has had something give us a connection to the MCU. And I wonder if one of the reasons they did that is because, Moon Knight didn't have anything really that connected it to the MCU. And then Ms. Marvel had just some minimal things where they talked about some things. And then of course the whole mutant thing at the end. So I wonder if that was one of the things they really wanted to hit home in this show, was that this is part of the MCU. We're going to make sure that
it's literally hitting us over the head with a hammer saying, hey, this is part of the MCU. So I think with those particular characters like Moon Knight and Ms. Marvel, we're definitely going to see them later on.
I would hope so.
And the fact is that with this, they're able to be like, all right, we're catering more to the adult viewers that are out there, the people that grew up on these comics. So kind of like catering to you and myself. And, mind you, this is like 50 plus years of comics, but we've grew up on these comics. And now we're getting the things that we love. And one of which I just love too. One scene that I really enjoyed was Emil's parole board hearing. Oh,
God.
Saying that he has been rehabilitated, plus he has his soulmates there watching outside through the glass, all 8 of them, because he got
seven.
Oh, it was 7? Okay.
Yeah, it was 7, yeah.
All right. But they were all out there, and it just kind of gave me that whole Manson feeling of like them following somebody who's in prison. But, honestly, Emil is not as bad, but he did mess up downtown Harlem with Bruce when they battled, and they kind of referenced that too in the last episode. Mm-hmm. And then we have Jen protecting him, or literally his legal format, and he pleads with Jen to help for a parole, of course, with Wong being there as like somebody that was there to provoke him and get him out of prison.
He was the key witness to let them explain, why that he escaped and that he came back of his own free will. He chose to come back. That was the key to getting him on parole, I think.
Yeah, and the fact that he says, "I've been rehabilitated." We'll go into our quotes later, but the fact that he talks about certain things, Jen talks about like a farm that he had started. He wants to do meditation and things of that nature, which is pretty cool because it goes back to the first episode too. Mm-hmm. Namaste, my butt is toned.
Your farts. Yeah, holding your farts.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty cool. But it shows them, Emil actually shows them that he could actually transform into the Abomination anytime he wants.
Yeah,
which I thought was pretty cool for the fact that in the comic books, he's never able to do that. And I think that is one cool comic book change that they did within this, so that he's able to change just like Bruce is or Jen is to, change into that form. Now, mind you, he has to wear a robe and he had to take off his Crocs. Apparently, he was more important, aware about his Crocs than he was his jumpsuit
prison
that he was
uniform.
wearing.
Yeah, his prison. Yeah, and he had that blanket right there ready. But that was great. I love that whole scene. All the people. It's one of those things. It's interesting that we got this because I don't know. Tim Roth again. It's just so good. And like I said,
he's amazing.
Every time I laughed hearing his voice coming out of the Abomination's body there, because it's just incredibly hilarious. But all the different witnesses that came on his behalf. We have that guard who he says he saved his marriage. We have the one woman saying the prisoners aren't making toilet wine anymore; they're making toilet kombucha.
Carl was there. Yeah, I loved Carl.
Yeah, the library is no longer just a quiet place to shiv people. I just all of it was great. But it was really, really cool. The one thing that I did think of on my third watch was, he could have given them a bit of a warning, but of course then we would have lost the comedic moment of him turning into the Abomination. He could have said something, but I wonder, and part of me wonders if Jen knew that he could do that because she was trying to tell him not to, or whether she figured out what he was going to do as soon as he started to do it, because she was trying to stop him. But it ended up being a point in his favor for being on parole, because he says, "Look, I can control my transformation. I'm not out of control." So that was really, really cool. I love that whole thing.
Yeah, which makes me think too, because we've seen sneak peeks before about the whole show, and they show him leading a bunch of other super characters or whatever within this was
that in one of the trailers?
They have an AA thing where they're all together in a roundabout, which is pretty funny. So I wouldn't be surprised this is pretty much his meditation or whatever it is, his group that he does.
That's
so
great.
I'm looking forward to seeing what that comes to be. But Tim Roth, honestly, he's a legendary actor. He was in Reservoir Dogs, which is one of my favorite films. Pulp Fiction. He's done so much other movies too. Mm-hmm. But Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction are the ones that I go to because I just love how he's able to carry himself. Actually, too, in Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, he talks about the Thing.
No, that's Reservoir Dogs.
No, it's Pulp Fiction.
No, it's Reservoir Dogs because he's describing Cabot to the other cop.
Oh,
He
yes.
says-
Okay,
he says,
yeah.
"The
I got it
thing."
backwards.
Yeah, he says, "Imagine the thing." That's Cabot. I just like because it's one of my favorite movies. Well, I just rewatched it a couple days ago, and it's just
okay, cool.
it's the thing.
The thing.
Mother effer looks like the thing. You know,
But I just love him and what he does. But you can tell the difference between now and from the Incredible Hulk because, you know, Tim has gotten older. So you can see the gray hair. His hair's got a little bit longish. You could see he's gotten older.
yeah,
So same thing with what they did with Mark Ruffalo. And you could see that including on the first episode of She-Hulk. Because you can see he's gotten older.
yeah,
And I'm glad that they make it in continuity. It's not like, oh, hold on, we're going to dye their hair, we're going to cut their hair back and hide their wrinkles or anything.
yeah.
My feeling is I love how they're keeping it within continuity.
Mhm.
And I really think with what's going on with Emil with this and his release, I'm starting to think more and more that what's her name at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Oh, yeah. What did they
Julia
call her?
Louise Dreyfus's character. I'm forgetting her name.
Oh,
but
yeah. I can't. It was that long. She had that really long.
yeah,
name.
exactly. So
Yeah, Countess, whatever, or Princess.
yeah,
or,
I think she has something to do with bringing the Thunderbolts into play. And I have a funny feeling that's what's going to happen with Emil Blonsky in this, and where he's going to stand within, because we are guaranteed of all things, a movie, and it's
okay.
going to be called what's his name? Oh, Thunderbolts.
right.
There we go.
Okay.
So we're going to get the Thunderbolts eventually. If you look at the comics, they do actually have the Thunderbolts, and Abomination is in there. It's kind of like a Suicide Squad, but the thing is that they don't have bombs strapped to their heads. It's like they're doing things because they're like an organized group. So I'm thinking that's what they're leading to, which would be amazing too, because I'm curious. We already got the fake Captain America. We're going to get Emil.
Mhm.
We already got Florence Pugh as Black Widow's sister. She's going to be in there. So I'm curious as to who else we get. I'm curious. To me, I could see what Marvel's concocting at this point, but I'm looking forward to it as we go along because, these are adaptations of comics into the cinematic universe as well as Disney Plus Marvel shows. And I really do enjoy that. And there's complete differences. And as a comic fan, yes, I understand that. But I just love the aspect that it's like at least Emil's able to transfer himself back into his human form and then go straight to Abomination, which we do get classic Abomination with the wings. We've mentioned that when we talked about Shang-Chi. But yeah, I'm loving that we get this kind of play on these Marvel characters that we get and the cinematic as well as the Disney Plus.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about Dennis for a minute here. Dennis and Runa. This was just hilarious. This whole sequence with him was just hilarious. I've got one of his quotes as my quote later on, one of my quotes later on. But I just love how this whole thing turned out. I love that moment, when he leaves the office and Pug is like, okay, I'll start building a case. And then he suddenly comes back in and it's obvious to us, the viewer, on my second, third watch. But that first time he comes back, I'm like, as soon as he starts talking, I'm like, something's strange here. And of course it ends up being Runa, and she just then she changes into Pug, and she walks past the women in the kind of the bullpen area there, and just then in the hearing, I loved everything in there about they're like, no, he couldn't believe that she's Megan Thee Stallion, and then later when Runa comes back as the judge. And she's banging the gavel, and it was just outrageous comedy that I loved. And it just, every time I watched it, I was just like, this is just more and more hilarious. And then I loved that moment in the bar when he comes and he sits down next to Nikki and he's like, oh, Dennis. And he says the guy's whole name, I think. And Nikki just pushes her drink over to him and goes, here, you're going to need this, And then he finally gets Jen to give her testimony. And he's like, did you work with him? And did he tell you about his romantic life, his dating life? And she's like, yes. Even if I didn't want to know, he would tell me. And she's like, yes, he would be delusional enough to believe he was dating Megan Thee Stallion.
Exactly.
So,
and he thought at the very end that he had a shot at the real
yeah. Do you think
person.
I should go back? Yeah. No, you shouldn't. I like Pug is like, no, you shouldn't. I just was that whole thing with Dennis. He's in his Cybertruck. I wanted to look up what a Cybertruck is. Is that like some kind of Hummer or something?
I'm assuming.
So I wanted to look it up. I didn't do it this afternoon. Yes, I just everything with Dennis every week he gets more and more, and it's a comic show, so these characters are going to be we're going to have the over the top,
yeah,
and that's what he is he's that over the top character of the misogynistic, egotistical man, arrogant, and everything. And I just love every week being able to just I can hear Greg in my head say F off, Dennis, so Dennis was my next one just to kind of talk about.
I had a left too that they actually used the actual fact that Runa was an elfin shapeshifter from New Asgard. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
And she apparently has diplomatic immunity, but it doesn't work outside of New Asgard.
Yeah.
So within illegal. So that's where Penny comes into play. So does that really work? So Penny, we leave that up to you on House Podcast to go for She-Hulk cast. So listeners, go there if you want all the legalese, because she'll break it down big time. But I just love how the judge dismisses the ruling and puts it into trial due to the issues with Runa. And then basically the judge thinks Bukowski is, honestly, he's an idiot.
Yeah.
And later on we see that, it's like, he winds up winning the case to some degree.
Yeah. Is he going to really be able to collect the money, though?
I don't think so. She's got no money. Unless she kind of shapeshifts and literally swindles somebody else out of their money. But she got her, her Volkswagen Passat paid for and everything else. Oh, right. Yeah. So that was with me. You actually took a lot of my my thoughts about it, especially with Jen's testimony. No, it's fine. I thought it was pretty funny how it's like how she broke it all down at the very end, saying how much of a delusional idiot he was. I thought it was pretty cool. The only thing that I got was, Jen breaks the wall talking about, the cameos for us.
I love that one.
For us to remember that it's her show regardless of the cameos. And yes, I know you want to see Wong. And she goes, except for, my cousin Bruce, Blonsky, and there was one other too. But it's just like she realizes, like, oh crap, it's more about me than it is.
Yeah. I love that moment in the car when she's talking to the camera and she's just, like you said, she's breaking the fourth wall. And she's reminding us of all the cameos that we've had throughout the first these three episodes. And then I think, and I'd have to go back, but I think almost every time there's been some sort of a line that leads into She-Hulk, to the She-Hulk attorney at law graphic coming up at the beginning. So I have to go back and watch that, but because she says something about, remember whose show it is, and then immediately goes to the graphic, the She-Hulk attorney at law graphic, which is great.
Yeah. And it really boils down to that. I think, well, this is her show. Honestly.
Exactly. The other two, fourth wall breaks that we had, or there's actually a third one. I think there's a third one in there, but I'll talk about that when we get to notes. Is when she's in the bar.
In notes.
when she's in the bar and she looks at the camera and she says, "We're connecting the A and B stories." I just thought that was really great.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, and then that moment after Dennis says something about, "Man, I wish we could just take away her powers," and she kind of looks at the camera and goes, "Did Dennis Bukowski just give me an idea? But that's just between us." And then cut away from it. So I don't know if Emil changed her mind with what he said at the end, or if we're actually going to see her try to get rid of her powers.
Well, that's interesting. Part of his release is that kind of like a restraint And if you remember at the very end of his release,
they said he's going to have to wear a restraint, right?
Yeah,
right.
So that's something that Bruce probably came up with, or something that they were able to fabricate from what Bruce did, which he didn't do for Jen, because he said, "Oh, it's a prototype and it's only for calibrated to me."
Right, but I think it's different. I think what the parole people are talking about is like what we've seen in other superhero shows, where it's an inhibitor to not let them use their powers. Even though he can choose to change, I think she actually wants to have her powers taken away. Not just
she does,
that she wears. But I think that's just something they do for all their superhero villains or super villains that they release, is they put some sort of inhibitor on them that they can't use their powers. That's what I took from it anyway. Maybe it's something else, but that I took from it that it was something normal that they just normally do for supervillain parolees. Because there's got to be supervillains in there or superpowered villains in there who do get released.
Yeah,
whether it's on parole or just finish their time or whatever. They've got to have some way of restraining them. So that's what I took from it. But yeah, there's one more that I think she has, and that's when we get the indication of the larger story when those guys attack her in the alleyway, and she's struggling with the first guy, and I'm kind of surprised it took the guy that long to get the syringe to her, because she gave him several seconds before she went, "Oh wait." And then she transformed into She-Hulk, and fought those guys. So and I can't wait for us to find out who this boss is that they called. And I know you probably know more about who these guys are from the comics, right?
Well, they are the Wrecking Crew, and that's literally what they are. They represent the Wrecking Crew. And in the comics, there was 3 of them, if I recall.
Mm-hmm.
And they did not have... But this looked to me like they had.
I loved it. She said, "What did you do?" Wait, I got it in my quotes. Did you guys rob an Asgardian construction worker?
That's exactly it.
And they all just stop and they go, "Yeah."
Yeah, literally. But the funny thing is in the comics, the Wrecking Crew were. I'm going to look this up because I didn't really think about this until just now.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, while you're looking that up, I'll go on to another point so we can stop the music here. I thought it was interesting. Emil gives her that line there at the end where he says something like, well, you're not going to be able to stop the press, so you might as well just embrace it. And so the next scene we see is her doing that interview as She-Hulk. And when the guy calls her She-Hulk, she says, "Well, my name is Jennifer Walters." And she goes, "And my client was Emil Blonsky, not the Abomination." And I just love that whole moment where the guy's like, "Well, how did you come up with the name She-Hulk?" She's like, "Well, really, I didn't." And we talked about that last episode, that she's kind of stuck with it now. But I just thought that was interesting that on one hand, she seems to be kind of embracing the She-Hulk persona, but there may still be this underlining thing of wanting to get rid of her power. So we'll see how that plays out in the coming episodes.
Yeah, to give you a little brief synopsis about the Wrecking Crew, who they were in the comics in comparison to this. Obviously, the Wrecking Crew is made of the Wrecker, Bulldozer, Pile Driver, and Thunderball. So there was 4 of them.
Yeah, and that I don't think any of those names are the names that he called that guy in the van.
No, he didn't at all.
Yeah, he called the guy something.
Yeah, this will be basically Disney Plus's version of the Wrecking Crew.
Mm-hmm.
Disney has done this before on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., if you remember, way back when, in the very beginning of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They did a version of the Absorbing Man, not the Ang Lee version that we got from Nick Nolte, of all things. And this one is, we got Wrecker, Bulldozer, Pile Driver, and Thunderball. In the comics, they were introduced in the Defenders issue number 17 in 1974. And they were, think about a Wrecking Crew and what you have.
Oh, I guess he did call him Thunderball, because I'm looking at IMDb now, and I guess he did call him Thunderball. So
okay. But, obviously they have their own their own abilities. In the comic, the team's leader, whose Wrecker is indestructible, has a crowbar with magical properties, and he basically hates and fears Thor. Bulldozer was an armored metal helmet and fights by ramming his victims head first. Piledriver fights with his oversized pile-driving fists. Thunderbolt is a thinker of the team and wields a huge demolition ball on a chain. Very, very similar to what the Absorbing Man did. But these were very much the characters within the comic, which is interesting, but honestly, these are different iterations of what we got from the comic to this, because they've adopted properties either from New Asgard or the Chitaurian. Think about it. Look what the Vulture did, and
yeah. Well, I mean, he did say when she said, "Did you rob an Asgardian construction worker?" He did say yeah. So basically, I think they got him from Asgard.
Yeah, so they basically got it from Asgard, but it's kind of following through with that premise that they're stealing, kind of like what the Vulture did, what Michael Keaton's the Vulture.
Yeah, here it's a little different because they're working for somebody, and we just don't know who that is
and
yet,
I wouldn't be surprised because there is slated for a cameo later on by the one and only Charlie Cox, who is Daredevil. And who is his ultimate nemesis that we remember from the Netflix show?
Yeah, it could be.
And
we could.
When was the last person that we saw that nemesis? In Hawkeye.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if it was the Kingpin.
Yeah, it could be. I think you're right. I think you're hitting the nail on the head, because I think with all the different cameos, and I think that's going to be kind of the hook, at least for the first season of this show, is all the cameos we're getting every episode, because she plays on it there at the beginning. We already talked about that.
Yeah.
The only other note I have that we haven't discussed yet is the bonus scene that I thought was just hilarious. And when Holloway sees them through the glass, he's just like, and they're in there twerking. And I loved the last line where she says, Megan says, "You're so much more fun than my last lawyer," and Jen says, "I will kill for you, Megan Thee Stallion," and Megan says, "Dial it back." So I just thought that was really cool. Dial it back, So and it looked like they were signing some paperwork. So she's gonna. I don't know if that means she's gonna come back in later episodes as a client, but obviously she was signing She-Hulk as either something to do with her legal side. Yeah. So that's the only other thing I've got. The only other. I have one quote here that we haven't done yet.
All right.
And that's Dennis when Mallory, I think it was Mallory, when Holloway tries to offer him another female lawyer. Dennis says, "Yeah, no, I can't talk to a 10 about embarrassing man stuff. She might be my next fiance." And she's just like, "I'm out of here."
Yep. I had that too. I thought it was
I cannot
hilarious.
get out of this. I cannot get out of this situation fast enough. So.
I have one quote too, which is from Emil himself saying, when he's asked if he feels rehabilitated by the board, and he states, "Let's start by saying that I feel remorse, great shame that I'm harmed so. To answer your question, I feel I have been rehabilitated. I've spent every day of my incarceration focused solely on my redemption. I have changed emotionally, physically, metaphysically, spiritually, karmically, cosmically, interdimensionally." And then Jen just cuts him off going, etc. But what Mr. Blonsky is saying is that this is not the same Emil Blonsky as before. So
I love it, because that's exactly what she told him in the last episode when he was being very arrogant about what he had done to transform himself. She said, no, you need to be, basically she told him, you need to be humble about it, show remorse, and say all these things, but make sure you say it in a way that's not puffing yourself up, basically. And that's what he did. But I thought it was just classic lawyering, that she was able to convince him how to talk to the parole board. That was so good.
All right, I have a few notes and a few comic references. So the first one would be, this is like a callback to the first Avengers. So the chamber that Emil is in during the hearing is pretty much just like the one in the original Avengers that they meant to use for Banner when they had him on the helicarrier. Okay. And they used it for Loki. But ultimately, at the very end of that particular movie, it trapped Thor, and he had to, like, use his hammer to get out. And it was hard for even Thor to get out of. So it was pretty funny for the fact that it's like, but, you know, he had a chair, he had a little table, he had his water, he had everything else that he needed, a blanket, and somewhere to put his shoes. But I thought it was pretty cool. It was kind of roundish. If all you Marvel fans out there, check that out and remember it. And then go back to Avengers, because I rewatched that not too long ago. You know, I just love the fact that, you know, Emil wants to do open a meditation retreat on a farm.
So we talked about that, yeah.
Easter eggs, well, Blonsky already mentioned it. You know, he can, you know, he in the comic, he's not able to transform back to his human form. So hence his anger in the comics and his rage and focusing it on Hulk all the time. Now, I'm curious with Marvel's properties, will we ever get to see the leader? Because we've already seen the Abomination for, like, Shang-Chi, and for this particular series. So we got Abomination back. At the very end of The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton, we do get to see the version or a person that starts to become the leader. And I'm waiting for that to happen too. So I'm wondering if that becomes something that they start to bring into, because Marvel was able to acquire a lot more of the universal rights for the Hulk industry. So I'm looking forward to that. That would be amazing to see. Another kind of comic book Easter egg that I have in my notes. The reporter states that, you know, Jen got her powers due to a mafia hit gone wrong, which literally is what happened within the comics. So I find it funny that they used that and utilized it as a story within.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I knew that you said she had been in the hospital when she got a blood transfusion, but I thought it was like from a car accident or something.
No, it was a gunshot wound.
Okay.
So yeah, I thought it was pretty cool, and the fact that, you know, of course, Bruce just takes off in the comic.
we talked about that about the origin story from the comics before, but yeah, that is kind of cool. They use it. I thought it was interesting. Every time that somebody would say something that was like a rumor, that reporter, who's like, I guess, like the entertainment news kind of reporter, would pick up on it and go, and she was rejected from the Avengers, you know?
That to me, there's something related in there that I just didn't pick up, and I'm like, I have to look at that, and I didn't really look for
I don't know if it's just a social news kind of thing, because like I said, one of the reporters asks, were you rejected from the Avengers? And then suddenly she picks it up and goes, and she was rejected from the Avengers. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, you didn't even answer the question. And so there's lots of those kind of things. I love that little montage we got at the beginning of all the different news anchors talking about her, even down to like a Spanish entertainment show is talking about her. So it was really cool to see all that. And that stuff was great.
As far as interesting news that came out regarding this particular episode, apparently Tim Roth stated that it was a pleasure working with Tatiana Maslany, and he thought all their scenes together were amazing. He was able to ad-lib, but he didn't know exactly what was going to go into the episode. And I thought you could find that on, I think it's comic.com. So you could actually find that out there.
That's pretty cool. I like him. I'm glad we're going to see more of him throughout the series. And
same here.
She's so great. It's really, really good that she's getting the recognition. I mean, I think she did win an Emmy for Orphan Black, at least one of the seasons of Orphan Black. I think she won an Emmy for it, but she was so good on Orphan Black that it's just to see her in something else, and especially this something so big, is just really a treasure.
All right. Well, that was pretty much our coverage. Podcast recommendations?
I'll just go back to, we kind of already talked about She-Hulk cast on Podcastica. I would recommend just go, if you've got your podcast player. I had to do this week because I wanted to get the Cast of Rings podcast that Podcastica is doing. If you go to your podcast player of choice and you search for Podcastica, you should get they should all come up for you to see and for you to subscribe to. If you watch these shows, if you watch House of the Dragon If you're watching the Rings of Power, Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, they have podcasts about those shows. In this month, they're going to be podcasting about Cobra Kai. Again, they have the She-Hulk cast, and they're doing so many things right now that is just a great podcast network. Nothing against our podcast network. Our podcast network is great as well, but Podcastic has got a lot of podcasts currently out there running. So go to podcastic.com or just search in your player of choice for Podcastica.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have any podcast recommendations except for the ones that I'm on, but I'll talk about that when we get to that point. But let's talk about how people could actually submit their feedback, since we didn't get any feedback on this.
Well, we can be heard. Well, we already talked about it. We can be heard on your podcast player of choice, whether that be Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, or whatever podcast player you use. If you can give us a rating or a review on there, we would love to hear from you that way. Ratings are always great. Word of mouth is a wonderful way to get the news of Panels to Pixels podcast out there. So if you can give us a rating or review, we would definitely give you a shout out here on the podcast.
And as always, you could go to our Panels to Pixels podcast.com website, currently under construction. Sorry, still on the leave of absence, but I'm hoping that I get this up sooner or later. I'm going to be working with Daphne, hopefully, and get that up and running and making 100%. I'm talking about Daphne from Run for Your Lives. So
very nice.
Cheap pop right there.
There you go. We are also on Facebook, facebook.com/panels to pixels. You can find us there. You can like us there. You can follow us there. We try to put out posts for what we're going to be doing next. So watch for us there for the Umbrella Academy and for She-Hulk.
Exactly. And you could find us on Twitter at panels2pixels. So that's panels, the number 2 pixels. So at panels2pixels.
We have an email address, panels2pixels1@gmail.com. That's panels2pixels1, the TO spelled out right in the middle, and then the number 1@gmail.com.
And if you like YouTube, you could actually find us. All you have to do is search for Panels to Pixels podcast on YouTube. And if you like what we do, just subscribe, give us a thumbs up for the episodes that you like, and just follow us there. The more views, the better. And on top of that, you might not just get regular content from, which is basically the podcast on YouTube form, but you could get some celebrity interviews once we get them.
We are on Instagram at Panels2Pixels Podcast, all spelled out. That's Instagram, Panels2Pixels Podcast, all spelled out with words. I don't know why I zoned out there for a second.
That's okay. All right, and we also like to encourage you to check out all the other podcasts on the Next Level Podcast Network. We highly recommend them all, including Wilhelm with Ben Beck, The Melting Pat, Podcast Zero, and so much more. All you have to do is go to nextlevelradioonline.com, check them all out there, and just follow the links and subscribe.
All right. Well, coming up next for us, you will be either hearing the next episode of the Umbrella Academy Season 3 or She-Hulk Season 1. Look for us out there on your podcast player feeds.
And where else can listeners hear us, Steve?
Well, I send various voicemails to our friends' podcasts like Run for Your Lives. I've been a little remiss on theirs the last few weeks. I'm going to try to catch up again here pretty soon, next few weeks, to pick up on Run for Your Lives. But I send voicemails to our friends who do again the cast of The Ring. That's Penny and I'm blanking. Cast of The Rings has
Kristen.
Yes.
Oh no! You're talking Onwin.
Yeah. Okay. Cast of the Rings is Onwin and another person. And then Cast of Dragons is with Rima, Joe, and Kristen. Covering House of the Dragon. Those two I send podcasts to as well. So check them out on the podcasting network already mentioned.
Awesome. And you could hear me on Adrenaline Cinema podcast, where we cover everything action, adventure, fantasy, suspense, thriller, everything that gets your adrenaline going. By this time, obviously Predator 1987 will be already up, but look forward to Prey that just came out on Hulu not too long ago, where Steve and I cover that, as well as Predator 1987, as well as Omega Man. And that was a 1971 film, so myself and Jerry will be covering that on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. You could also hear me on the Podcastica Network on House Podcastica when we do Sandman Cast, as we are covering each episode of the Netflix series Sandman. So we're doing this episodically, so I'm doing it episode by episode with our friend Jamie Dimmick. I've been keeping up with the comic as well as in comparison to the actual episodes, so that there is some sort of comparison, so Jamie doesn't think I'm a complete buffoon. And I just watched the episodes. So I'm trying to keep up with my comic book reading as well as watching the show and getting a good comparison within that. So I think Jamie is a little bit better with it because she loves the comic and she loves the show itself. Our friend Lara is on for the last episode, and that was amazing. That was fun. So check that out. So yeah, Sandman Cast on the House Podcastica or on the podcastica.com.
Very good. Well, same podcast, different panel, different pixel.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Steve.
And this was Panels to Pixels. And we'll see you on the next panel. Good night.
Good night.